Brutal. That's all you can say, and the look on Caitlin Clark's face said it all after she clearly tweaked her groin in the Fever win over the Connecticut Sun in what has been an injury-riddled season for Clark. And whether it was pain or frustration or a combination of both, you could see it weighing on her. Now, she had snapped at a referee earlier. She had held her head down in the midst of her shooting slump. So maybe some of this is just all of that coming to a head.
19,156 fans packed TD Garden in Boston, but they weren't there for the home team. They came to witness Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever rewrite history. The same Connecticut Sun team that poked her in the eye and body-checked her into headlines was waiting at center court. What no one expected, Clark wasn't just coming for revenge. She was about to break 3 WNBA records in a single night. But just when it felt like the perfect ending, everything changed fast. This wasn't just another stop on the Fever's schedule, it was personal. Back in June, Caitlin Clark faced one of the roughest games of her rookie season against the Connecticut Sun. A brutal eye poke from J.C. Sheldon, a blatant body check from Marina Mabry, and an officiating crew that let chaos erupt turned that game into a national talking point. It wasn't basketball, it was a beatdown. Fans were outraged. Analysts called it reckless. And Clark, she remembered everything. Now, just weeks later, the rematch was set, not in Indiana, but in Boston's legendary TD Garden, where history lives. But this time, it wasn't a hostile crowd. Fever fans showed up in force, turning an away game into home court advantage. You could feel the tension in the air. Every dribble, every stare down, every whistle. The stage was set not just for a rematch, but for a reckoning. This wasn't the same Indiana Fever team that got pushed around in June. Something had changed. They found their identity, and it started with putting the ball back in Caitlin Clark's hands. From the opening tip, the difference was clear. The Fever weren't reacting, they were dictating. Clark wasn't just trying to score, she was orchestrating every possession with precision. Her teammates moved with confidence, the ball zipped across the court, and the pace was relentless. This was Fever basketball, fast, fluid, and fearless. Sophie Cunningham stepped into the enforcer role, ready to protect her star. Kelsey Mitchell caught fire, forcing defenders to stay honest. Natasha Howard dominated the paint, and even when Aaliyah Boston struggled with her shot, she made her presence felt with rebounds, blocks, and smart passes. Every player knew their role. Every player had her back. Connecticut tried the same rough tactics. They sent double teams, full court pressure, hard screens. But this time, it didn't rattle Clark. It ignited her. The Connecticut Sun came in with the same strategy that worked last time. Rattle Caitlin Clark early, throw bodies at her, make her uncomfortable, and dare the rest of the Fever to step up. But this time, Indiana flipped the script. Instead of folding under pressure, Clark leaned into it. She absorbed the double teams, stayed composed under full court traps, and carved up the defense, not with scoring, but with vision. The Fever weren't just surviving the pressure, they were punishing it. Clark's passing turned Connecticut's aggression into a liability. The more defenders they sent her way, the more teammates she found wide open. Mitchell thrived with space, pouring in 20 points. Natasha Howard went to work inside, cleaning up around the rim and crashing the boards. Sophie Cunningham hit timely threes. The whole offense flowed like a machine, and the message was clear. If you try to take Clark out of the game, she'll just take over in a different way. The Sun had no answer. Their game plan unraveled. Their pressure backfired. And as the Fever's confidence surged, so did the crowd, roaring with every pass, every basket, every time Clark made them pay. For months, critics said the Fever were too dependent on Caitlin Clark, that if you slowed her down, you stopped Indiana. Not anymore. This game proved that the Fever's supporting cast is no longer in the background. They're stepping into the spotlight. Kelsey Mitchell was electric, torching the defense with 20 points and hitting shots when the offense needed a jolt. She wasn't just a secondary option. She was a co-star. Natasha Howard dominated the paint with 18 points and 13 rebounds, providing a physical presence the Sun couldn't handle. She punished switches, cleaned up second-chance points, and gave Indiana much-needed toughness inside. Off the bench, Sophie Cunningham was fearless. She hit big-time threes, played tough defense, and brought the kind of spark that changes momentum. Every time Connecticut tried to claw back in, Cunningham answered. Even Aaliyah Boston, who struggled to score, made her impact felt with rebounds, crisp passes, and strong interior defense. Her willingness to do the dirty work spoke volumes. This wasn't just Clark's show, it was a team victory. Every player knew their role, and every player delivered. And for the first time all season, the Fever looked like a complete team that could win with Clark. But not just because of her. While the crowd erupted over big shots and hustle plays, Caitlin Clark was quietly rewriting the WNBA history books without anyone even noticing. Her shot wasn't falling. Just 4 of 14 from the field and 1 of 7 from 3. But that didn't matter. What she did without scoring points was even more impressive. First, she became the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 450 career assists, doing it in just 53 games. That shattered the previous record by a staggering 9 games, a testament to her elite vision and passing under pressure. Second, she hit 150 career three-pointers faster than anyone in league history. Even on an off-shooting night, she had already proven she's one of the deadliest perimeter threats the game has ever seen. Third, and maybe most impressive of all, Clark extended her streak to 40 consecutive games with 5 or more assists, setting yet another all-time WNBA record. That's not just consistency, that's excellence. Night in, night out. While the Connecticut Sun tried to rattle her, she was calmly stacking numbers that no rookie or veteran had ever put up this quickly. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, but it was historic. And then, in the final 5 minutes, she exploded. Clark outscored the entire Connecticut team by herself down the stretch. One player, one mission, one unforgettable closing act that sealed the win and her place in the record books. With 5 minutes left on the clock and the Fever clinging to a narrow lead, everything changed. The crowd, already electric, felt it building. The game slowed. The stakes rose. And then Caitlin Clark took over. This wasn't about flashy stats anymore. This was personal. The same Connecticut Sun team that had roughed her up a month ago was now staring down a version of Clark they couldn't contain. And in those final minutes, she didn't just lead. She dominated. She scored. She assisted. She dictated every possession like a maestro conducting a final symphony. When the ball was in her hands, the Fever flowed. The Sun scrambled. It was chess, and she was 5 moves ahead. In those last 5 minutes, Clark outscored the entire Connecticut roster by herself. Let that sink in. 1 rookie, 1 point guard, outscoring a full playoff caliber roster in crunch time. Every decision she made carved up their defense. Every pass ignited a scoring run. Every possession was a statement. She hit floaters through contact. She zipped passes through tight windows. She found cutters the defense didn't even see coming. It was ice-cold execution with the game on the line, and she made it look easy. By the time the final buzzer sounded, the scoreboard read 85-77 Fever. But everyone watching knew this was more than just a win. This was payback delivered with precision, a masterclass in closing time. The Sun brought the pressure, and Clark burned right through it. One moment, Caitlin Clark was orchestrating a masterpiece. The next, silence. With under a minute to go, just after setting up a beautiful basket for Kelsey Mitchell, Clark came to a sudden stop, clutching her right leg. Her face told the story before the broadcast even zoomed in. Pain, confusion, and the sinking realization that something wasn't right. She had tweaked the same groin that had been bothering her for weeks, the same injuries she'd played through, pushed through, and ignored for the sake of her team. But this time, it didn't seem like something she could shake off. As she walked slowly to the bench, the energy inside TD Garden flipped. The roar of a historic win turned into an uneasy hush. Teammates and coaches leaned in, trainers circled. And Clark, usually composed and calm, looked shaken, tears brimming, jaw clenched. It wasn't just the pain, it was the timing. After a night where she broke 3 WNBA records, carried her team to victory, and silenced her critics, it ended with her on the sideline, unable to finish what she started. Fans held their breath. Social media exploded. Was this just a scare? Or was the all-star captain about to miss the biggest weekend of her young career? The game was over, but the real question remained. Would Caitlin Clark be okay? And just like that, one of the greatest nights in WNBA history ended not with a celebration, but with concern. Caitlin Clark's groin injury shifted the entire narrative. What was supposed to be a celebration of dominance, redemption, and historic achievements has now become a waiting game, not just for Fever fans, but for the entire WN. The questions hang heavy. Will she be ready for the All-Star game in Indiana, her home state? Will she pull out of the three-point contest, one of the most anticipated moments of the weekend? Is this just a minor tweak, or a sign that the grind of the WNBA season is catching up to the league's most watched player? There's fear, because we've seen how groin injuries linger. They don't heal on adrenaline. They need time, rest, and caution. And Clark doesn't strike anyone as the type of player who sits out easily. She pushes through. She plays through pain. But sometimes even the fiercest competitors have to pause. Hope that the MRI clears her, that it's nothing more than tightness, that she'll be on the court Friday with a smile, a shooting sleeve, and a mission. Hope that this setback only fuels her fire. Hope that fans don't just remember the injury, but the 3 records, the comeback, the leadership, and the statement she made in hostile territory. No matter what happens next, one thing is certain. Caitlin Clark gave us a night we'll never forget. And whether she's suiting up next week or sitting courtside in sneakers, she's already changed the game. What we witnessed wasn't just a basketball game. It was a story of vengeance, resilience, and raw emotion. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever walked into Tea Garden carrying the weight of past wounds, and they left having written a new chapter in WNBA history. 3 records broken, a hostile arena turned into a Fever fan takeover, a team that once looked lost, now playing with identity and fire. And at the center of it all, Clark, a generational talent who somehow still finds new ways to surprise us. But sports always remind us how fragile greatness can be. 1 minute, a highlight, the next, an injury. As fans, we celebrate the triumphs, and we hold our breath for the moments that make our heroes human. So now it's your turn. If you felt the chills, if you stood up during those final 5 minutes, if you believe in this team and the future of women's basketball, drop a comment below. I've got the fever, let's go. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Because the story of Caitlin Clark is far from over. And if we know anything about her, it's this: she'll be back, stronger, smarter, and hungrier than ever. This isn't the end, it's the beginning of something legendary.